Hi there, everyone. I am Kirstin McIntosh, and I'd like to welcome you today to the third in our four-part webinar series for Global Victoria. This is webinar 3 and is the US business perspective, the industry engagement from cybersecurity viewpoint. And today I have the absolute pleasure of sharing the insights from this formidable panel lineup for cybersecurity leaders from 4 very different industries: technology, healthcare, insurance, and I've just lost the last one: technology, healthcare, insurance, and I've forgotten the last one for you. I'm so sorry. And what we're going to be doing today is they're going to be talking about the unique challenges, their roles and insights, and importantly, how to win business here in the US. Now, firstly, I need to tell you that the session is being recorded and you can place questions in the Q&A chat. There will be a Q&A that takes place at the end of the session if there's enough questions. If you don't have any questions, I will keep on asking questions of our panel. They can be submitted anonymously. So my 4 panelists today are Jo Bentley. She is the Global Business International Security Officer of Liberty Mutual. We have Kathy Hughes, the Chief Information Security Officer of Northwell. Ricardo Lafosse, the Chief Information Security Officer of Kraft Heinz. I do apologise, Ricardo, it was FMCG that I forgot to call out just then. And Helen Patton, and she is the Cybersecurity Executive at Cisco. And now I'd like to do a quick handover to Daniel Halpin from Global Victoria, who's going to provide you an outline of the US trade program in this whole webinar series. Over to you, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Kirstin, and hello to everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are. Firstly, as we're all based in different places, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various lands on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to our elders past and present, and the elders of other communities who may have joined us on this webinar today. So just to echo Kirstin's thanks, thank you for joining us for this third webinar of a 4-part series on the US cybersecurity industry. Many of you will know me, but for those that don't, I'm Global Victoria's Trade Manager for Technology based in the US, and I lead our support for the Victorian technology industry in the US market. Those of you that have joined us for the previous session will know that this series is part of a wider cybersecurity initiative that we are delivering in the first half of 2025. If you were unable to join us for our first 2 webinars, then I'd recommend checking out the recordings, and particularly if you're interested in learning more about capital raising, legal and regulatory issues, or the US defense industry. In a fortnight, we will host our final session spotlighting 3 of the key cybersecurity ecosystems in the US, and I hope you can all join us for that. Before I make myself scarce and let you all get on with enjoying this session, I want to thank Kirstin for moderating, and again echo her thank you to the participants for joining us today. We are lucky to have a wide range of expertise on this panel and cover multiple industries, and I'm sure everyone on the webinar will learn a lot. If this is your first time engaging with Global Victoria and you're interested in learning more about our initiatives, then do reach out to either myself or my Melbourne-based colleague Troy Tui, who is also on this webinar, to learn more about how we can support you in the US market and other markets around the world, and more about our cybersecurity initiatives. So with that, I'll quickly hand back to Kirstin to get on with the discussion. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. Right, let's kick off the session. And I'd really like to provide some context to the discussion we're about to have. Australia is seen as a sophisticated market of cybersecurity, but it's small. And the US market, these 4 cybersecurity leaders, represents a really different set of challenges, with the sheer size, the deep verticals they work in, and the unique geographic specializations. So to give you that context, there are probably between 3,500 to 4,000 US cybersecurity vendors that they may or may not be working with. With regards to the number of CISOs in the US, there are 100% of US Fortune 500 companies have a CISO, and there's a majority of the Global 2000 organizations. And in 2023, apparently there are 7,523 Chief Information Security Officers or CISOs in the US. To give you context of their roles, according to a Cisco report, security leaders look at their top 3 areas of responsibility to be: leadership is 35%, risk assessment and management, which comes in at 44%, data privacy and governance. However, only 29% of CISOs say they actually receive a proper budget for cybersecurity initiatives. So we may touch on all of that There are no right or wrong answers, and these are the truths of the worlds that these leaders make their decisions on a daily basis. So I really love this panel to be an opportunity to share stories, offer counterpoint opinions, and generally have fun while we learn from each other. So let's dive in. If each of you could share a quick summary about the key elements of your role and the background, particularly in the context of your work in cybersecurity, it might be about your company, your team, its size, the global footprint of your team, or simply what motivates you to get up in the morning to do this role. So Joe, I would love to hear from you first.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So let's see. My role is a global business information security officer. So in effect, my job is to set the security posture for all of our markets across the globe. My areas of responsibility are UK, Europe, APAC, India, and the US. And specifically to our global risk solutions market. Each of those locations also have members of my team who locally are addressing issues from a cybersecurity perspective, a regulatory perspective, an awareness perspective, a range of things. And each location has things that are unique to them that we have to address, and some that are central to all of us. If there is a takeaway, we all have the responsibility to ensure that we're doing the right things, we're clear about what our security responsibilities are, and we are carrying them along as responsible defenders. So on that note, I would say ask me some more questions and I can give a bit more context.
That's a great start. Thank you for that, Joe. I am now going to see what Kathy has to say about her own role as well.
Yeah, so as was mentioned, I'm the Chief Information Security at Northwell Health. That's in New York. Our primary locations are on Long Island, New York, up into Connecticut, and we're expanding even into other states. We're acquiring a number of hospitals over the coming months. So in my role, I have responsibility for governance, risk, and compliance for the health system from a cybersecurity perspective. I also am responsible for overseeing all the security tools, technologies, the Security Operations Center, all things security, monitoring, threat detection, response, and recovery. I also am responsible for the disaster recovery program, as well as for overseeing our third-party risk management. So we get involved with a lot of the new technology reviews, solution reviews, anything that they're looking at that might involve artificial intelligence or any other kind of technology so that we can appropriately assess the risk posture of that solution.
Thanks, Kathy. We are definitely going to be diving into those solution reviews. What about you, Ricardo? Kraft Heinz, that's a very different market. Tell me a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So a little bit about myself. I am the CISO for Kraft Heinz, super awesome consumer product goods organization, and the leader in elevating and creating food that makes you feel good. But you wouldn't think immediately CPG and technology, but we're a very data and technology-driven organization. We have about 36,000 employees, approximately 26 billion revenue, and a massive global footprint. So that leads a lot of areas to cover as a CISO. Governance, everyone's favorite, manufacturing on the OT side, incident management, very similar to Kathy. If it's illogical, it's probably my problem in one way or another. A little bit about myself. I've been in cyber for about 20 years, 10 of those as a CISO, and I was self-taught through video games. Fun bar story. But most important aspect of my background, I'm an avid gamer, big anime nerd, and some would call me a cyber enthusiast. But before I pass it on, I also want to highlight that I have the most epic and amazing team in the planet that lets us be successful. Back to you, Kirstin.
Thanks. I love that, the epic team. And I could see Helen there just nodding away. So Helen, over to you. I'm curious about what you're going to say about your role at Cisco.
Yeah, so I have been in security a really long time too, also self-taught. Right now, I've been at Cisco 4 years. I've had 3 roles in 4 years. So I've been the CISO for the security business group at Cisco, which just means I had the word security in my title way too long, too often. Right now, I am cybersecurity advisor for state, local, and education. So I work with state and local and federal customers in the United States and helping them with their cybersecurity strategies and plans. Prior to coming to Cisco, I was the CISO for The Ohio State University for 8 years. So I've got the whole higher ed thing going on. And prior to that, I was 10 years in security at JP Morgan. So I've got the financial sector thing going on as well. So all in right now, I'm a whopping big team of 1. If I had to explain Cisco, we are technology industry, started in manufacturing, actually now much more into software. We do a lot in mergers and acquisitions. We buy up a lot of companies, most recently Splunk. That's a whole story in and of itself. We have an international footprint. The security teams at Cisco, just to put things in perspective, the enterprise security team at Cisco has 900 people in it. Each line of business, and security was a line of business, and that's where I was, has their own security teams as well, which we would characterize as product security teams. And they could have been anywhere from 200 to 500 people as well. So internal security teams at Cisco, pretty significantly large, and includes all the things that everybody talked about, also includes anti-fraud. So in the manufacturing space, there's a lot of counterfeit switching, networking gear, all of that kind of stuff. And so the central security team is also responsible for fraud and fraud defense as well. So there you go.
Right. Oh my goodness, that sounds absolutely huge. You all have amazing, I mean, thank you for that. Yeah, you've already indicated this, how wide this conversation is going to go today. So I'm going to dive straight in with Kathy, since you took this one first. How does you come? It's really hard in Australia to get time with the CISO or even the security team and their influences. And then with the confidential nature of the industry, even if understanding if your product is of interest at all. So I'm curious how to understand this all works in your own circumstances. So Kathy, my question to you is, how does your business identify new solutions in the cybersecurity space? Is it through business need, team research, peer recommendations, marketing? I'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So, the way we hear about solutions is like you would hear about anything. It's through attending industry conferences, from going to events, from talking to peers, to reading. There's so much information available on the internet, attending vendor presentations, reports that come out. I know I'm an advocate in reading annual reports that come out from the big vendors, CrowdStrike, Verizon, Ponymon. They partner with Proofpoint and IBM on reports. So there's a lot of information just about risks out there and trends in the industry. So that kind of, guides your attention towards looking at certain types of products and services that are available. And so, and then there's also the specialized healthcare groups that I know that we belong to. There's the HISAC, which is the Healthcare Information Sharing Organization. So there's a lot of networking that goes on there. And it's what you just hear, that works in different organizations. It's also balancing and understanding what the strategic directions are of the organization, and aligning the risk posture and looking at solutions that mitigate those risks. We all know that everybody, including healthcare, is looking at AI. That's the big thing of 2024, and there's a lot going on in that space. So staying on top of trends and where the business is going, and making sure that you're aligning your security posture to enable the business, to enable our healthcare organization, as well as to make sure that you understand the risks and you're mitigating to a degree, and doing product research. Who are the vendors out there who really understands healthcare? Because in healthcare, we're very highly regulated. There's even more so now. The U.S. is, I think, the most targeted country in the world, because that's just the reality of what's reported, the breaches that are reported. So it's making sure that there's more regulation coming out, so making sure you understand what the regulation requirements are and that you understand what the new products and services are out there. Always reassessing the tools in your toolbox, because what might be the best tool today may not be the best tool tomorrow. And even as Helen mentioned, companies are buying other companies. So you have to understand, is that a good thing, a bad thing? Is that the right direction? Does that align with our portfolio and so forth? So there's all these questions that you always ask. We're a very large organization. We have about 185,000 employees, 24 hospitals, close to 1,000 practices. So for me and my team, because, we always try to do more with less, that's always what we're being driven to do. So having that single pane of glass, having, and we have grown through acquisition, merger and acquisition. So you have to stitch everything together and be able to look at the risk through a single pane of glass or a single lens, which is always very challenging. So that's an area that we always look at. So we won't necessarily just look at the solution by this cloud provider because we have a cloud presence there, because they only support the services or the applications that you're running in their particular environment. So we have to be very vendor agnostic and be able to make sure that the solutions that we pick can really enable us to manage the risk through that centralized lens.
Right. So that's such a full answer. Thank you so much, Kathy. Ricardo, can I ask you, can you outline your own involvement in procuring and developing new solutions at Kraft Heinz? And my second part of the question is, should you actually ever be, as a CISO, the target of a startup, or can they actually be better served looking elsewhere in your team? Because a lot of startups I see, it's like, if I can just get in front of the CISO, they are the person who's going to make the big decision. Tell me your experience on that.
Yeah, let's start with the second one, because I think that's more interesting. From my perspective, I would say knowing the posture of an organization from a CISO perspective is good, but if you want to make true traction, identify those problem statements or those areas you're trying to solve, and identify the leaders in those areas. Because if you come to me with a very innovative, awesome approach for making an analyst's life 10 times easier, I'm not an analyst on a day-to-day. So finding those individuals in my team and target those individuals to highlight, hey, I can make your life better, and almost have my analyst and the supplier almost have a go-to-market to me and my leadership team, is a lot more effective than going at the very top and saying, oh, Ricardo, we have this great idea. First, getting the attention's pretty difficult, because as CISOs, we have so much noise coming at us. Kathy probably gets 100 emails a day from I have this awesome idea. I'm going to save the planet. You actually might, but I have 900 other ones to go through. So really targeting those specific areas within an organization. And all of you can do some open source intelligence. You can figure it out. It's pretty straightforward. On the involvement piece from a procurement perspective, we're very typical. Kathy's amazing response is very similar to ours. We identify areas for improvement, risk prioritize, or there's a new business venture that we don't have the appropriate controls on, so we prioritize those. Once we risk prioritize those controls or initiatives that we want to work on, we perform our own internal due diligence. We have a team specifically within our architect arm that identifies new control sets and see how it fits into the bigger picture. Because one thing we've taken a really strong stance on are, if we're introducing a new tool, can we remove something? Can we consolidate? Or more importantly, if we're introducing a new tool, it needs to talk to the other tools. We're done with the days of just having an island out here. We need to make sure that the tools can coexist really well. So that's a big part of our internal due diligence. And once we get to that phase where we think it's a good fit, we always do a proof of concept and then bring our friends from procurement to help us along for the remainder of the process.
Fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned proof of concepts because I was really interested in actually how it works. Now, Joe, you are sitting in the financial services space. They're always going to be a big target for every single new company in the whole world to come and try and just like, yes, I can solve problems. So, and I know one of the answers is going to be, what areas of cybersecurity have you interested most, apart from AI, in the last few years? What are the problems that you're seeing the most interesting in your space at the moment?
So incidentally, for me, the things that have interested me most have nothing to do with the tech. The things that have interested me most is the transition from traditional tech to cyber resilience. That, to me, has been the most fascinating elements. Prior to Liberty Mutual, I was a CISO in banking and financial services. In that sector, resilience has always been a thing. The transition of the market now to cyber resilience is fascinating in that it's not just about how well your tech works. It is really understanding your ecosystem, overlaying it with risk management, and being able to respond a lot quicker to cyber events within your environment, understanding that you may not be able to stop things, but you need to respond very quickly. And that has been the most fascinating shift for me, just observing the dynamics. That interconnection of the ecosystem, accounting for it, understanding that, yes, there's no siloed environment. So you've got to think about all of those connections and how they play into your underlying structures. That, to me, has been way more fascinating than any of the tech. Yes, I could say AI. Yes, there are lots of fun things there. But I think the dynamics of understanding that we are a living, breathing mechanism that has to respond and understand our primary goals and objectives within a business ecosystem, it has been way more fascinating because you have to pull in everything. You've got to pull in the tech, the processes, and the people and balance out. That is way more complex than sort of trying to figure out how quickly I can get this tech or that tech to speak. That we've got, in most cases, we've got the rule book for, we can study. Making the ecosystems connect, those are a tad more challenging and exciting.
I think it's a lot more than a tad more exciting, Joe. that sounds...
Because this is where you start introducing the impacts of the supply chain and how that plays into how you operate. And what types of incidents do you see that ripple across multiple vectors?
Right. Helen, one question for you. So I saw a LinkedIn post yesterday which referred to the idea of security per dollar and how, and I'm sure this is something that's quite familiar to you all. So how do you, or how does, I guess, Cisco as a company think about a procurement of solution or as an acquisition? I mean, it could be, we've already touched on risk reduction. We've heard about, no one's actually mentioned cost, which is really interesting. Ability to serve your needs, is it the global footprint of your vendor, reputation, peer recommendations? I'm not asking for a, there must be a checklist somewhere, but the top things that you think about at Cisco, what are they in this security? Is it a security per dollar that you look at?
Not necessarily. You're certainly going to do what you can do to be as efficient with your resources as you can be, because nobody's got all the resources they want. From the smallest company to the biggest company, we could always use more money, and we could always spend more money if it came our way. But so you're going to pay attention to that. I think the comments from the other panelists apply at Cisco too. Does this particular tool address a threat or vector that we have that maybe we feel is particularly critical at this point in time? Does it satisfy a compliance obligation that we may have that we hadn't taken into account before? Does this interoperate with the rest of the technology stack? The interoperability is a really big issue, whether you're a small company and you've just got a very small amount of security personnel. You need that tool to play nicely with others because you don't have the bandwidth to be able to make sure that it's working properly. But equally, when you're in an organization as big as Cisco, more complexity means more risk. And so you're looking for solutions that are going to interoperate well, and you're willing to pay top dollar for that if you get that. One of the things in the industry, apart from the, dollar per security metric or whatever, everyone's got their own metrics. This is also what makes it hard. Get 10 CISOs in a room and you're going to get 10 different dashboards and 10 different ways of measuring things. The challenge is also going to be around, can you, as the person who's got to go to the well to get the money to buy the thing, can you justify it within the context of the business that you're operating in? So from a Cisco perspective, Cisco wants to be seen as a leader, as a service provider to our other customers, and we're in a business to business model. So we are trying to show that the products we deliver, whether those are networking products or security products or collaboration products or anything, have an appropriate level of security and security resourcing built into that. So for us, we can make a business case that spending $1 on a security solution leads to bottom line sales. And that can be super important. That doesn't hold true in every industry. When I was at higher education, it was really hard to say that a security buy led to better student outcomes in the classroom. Like that was sort of a bridge too far, right? So every vertical that you deal with, if you're selling into that vertical a cybersecurity product, is going to have something that is meaningful to them, whether that's resiliency, whether that's effective and ease of operations, whatever. Cisco is really looking for solutions that are going to be meaningful to the customers that buy our other products. And so we can make that leap.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good, that business outcome. I think, it's great tech. You get a lot of people saying, but I have great tech. But I think we've already, Joe, you've all highlighted it's just a lot more. The word I'm hearing now is bringing out is the interoperability out of that in particular. Okay, so each of you, I'm going to ask each of this. What are the 3 things that Australian stakeholders need to understand about your industry in the US? And are any of those that might surprise you? And I'm going to just toss this one to Ricardo to start with, because I think you'll have some interesting things to say about fast-moving security.
I see. Picking on CPG. I see how it is.
That's right. Exactly.
All right. I would say top 3. Operations come first. That probably isn't surprising, as the core of our business is manufacturing. So as we introduce new controls or disruptive or innovative technology, they need to be carefully planned and understand that ecosystem. So I'm going to go back to our fun buzzword, interoperability. 2, surprisingly, there is an appetite and desire to partner with niche and smaller technology providers in the marketplace. Yeah, Cisco's great. All the other big players are great, but there's also really awesome smaller organizations that are fitting into our risk control framework that are solving awesome issues. Just because you're smaller or a startup doesn't mean that larger organizations won't work with you. We have a very big appetite to partner with those type of organizations. And last but not least, we thrive on technology and data. CPGs are not old dinosaurs. Well, most aren't. And we do have older technologies, but we are also on the forefront of technology and data, and we use that as a competitive advantage. So understand us as a tech company that also makes amazing food at the same time. So just a different dichotomy in how I'd like to represent CPG.
Thank you. I think you have made a lot of smaller companies very happy hearing those news. Joe, what should we know about the insurance industry that might surprise people if they're going to be winning business with you?
So insurance is about trust. It is about relationships. It is about engagement. So the first thing that will be most important is to engage with integrity and transparency. Remember, anytime you take insurance, it's about trusting that you will get something as a result. So for them, they will engage with trust. Integrity is extremely important. If you are selling to them, be clear about, if you've got software, hardware, whatever it is, be clear about what your software is. Ensure that if you are selling software, you have a clear bill of materials so that they understand how your software is built. Be clear about what controls you have and how they work. Yet again, going back to integrity, transparency, trust, and be prepared to go through a level of due diligence. Yet again, they've got to trust that whatever it is you're giving to them as a cyber control, as software, as tech, works exactly how you said it would, and it solves the problem they're trying to solve. They're not interested in solving every problem in the universe when they engage. There's a specific problem they intend to solve, and whatever it is you've got on the table should be addressing that problem. But most importantly, trust, integrity, transparency. Extremely important.
Love those traits. Yeah, I think that really could sum up the whole cybersecurity industry in a way, Joe. That's I've heard those words so many times. Kathy, for you, what's important in the healthcare industry that might surprise some of the companies listening today?
Yeah. So I think one of the, probably people are aware of it, but I'll just kind of highlight it. But the US healthcare system, it's highly complex. There's multiple payers, regulatory bodies at local, state, federal levels, and all of the different entities that are part of the healthcare ecosystem have various levels of technology maturity. So you have, from small doctor's offices to very large, complex, diverse healthcare systems like Northwell. And really understanding that ecosystem is critical. And I think that's one point I would bring up. The second is, and I mentioned this previously, there are significant compliance and regulatory requirements. So when bringing forth solutions, it's really important that they understand the complexity and also the compliance requirements that we have to live up to, because we have no choice with that. So it's very important that be understood, and that's for us to understand that companies we deal with understand healthcare is really, really important. And then I would say also the scale. Healthcare market, it's very vast, it's diverse, it requires different solutions to meet different needs within the organization, everything from a doctor's office to even end-of-life hospice type care. And it's all intertwined and all part of the ecosystem. And there's a lot of challenges that face small providers that are different, that and there's different challenges that affect larger organizations like us. So really, understanding that complex ecosystem and the challenges, regulation, compliance requirements that we are held, that we have to comply with is really important for any vendor that we would potentially consider, that they understand that.
I think, yeah, there's certainly a theme about, understanding a customer coming through very strongly here. Helen, what about, how does it work at Cisco? What should we be surprised? I mean, everybody knows the Cisco name. What can you surprise us with? That's what I'm looking for from you.
So I'm not going to be specific to Cisco here in my comments. I would first say, if you're going to try and sell into the technology sector, be really specific about the size and age of the organizations you want to sell into, because you're going to get a different experience if you're going with a small Silicon Valley startup compared to sort of a mid-tier technology organization that's been around for 10 years compared to a Cisco that's international and has been around for 40 years. As a general statement across the technology industry, if you think because you're working with the tech sector that we've got tech solved, that we've got security solved, you're fooling yourself, right? And the older the company, the more complicated the tech stack, the more tech debt you've got, all of those things, which leads to a lot of opportunity. But it also means that if you're going to sell your product into that organization, you better be coming with customer service support. You better be coming with integration support. Don't assume that because a tech company is a tech company that they know their own tech. And I wish this was not the case. Like, I've had plenty of conversations with my colleagues in the tech sector, and I'm like, shouldn't we be doing this better? And they're like, yeah, nobody's really doing it better. Like, they know their tech. They won't know your tech, right? So they may be really good at the tech thing they do, but if you show up and you're doing authentication and that's not their thing, or you're doing detection and that's not their thing, they ain't going to understand your world. So you're still going to need those translatory sort of services, even for the security teams within those organizations. So don't assume.
I don't know whether to be alarmed by or to see the opportunity.
I know, it's scary.
All right. I want to move on to just getting into the US market. And I do see time and time again lots of posts from really frustrated security leaders about the sales tactics of vendors. So how can new and foreign companies, and this is I don't know who wants to take this one first, respectfully get your attention? Joe, can I toss that one to you?
Yes, you can. So Liberty Mutual is a Fortune 100 company. It's got 40,000 employees, about 40 billion in revenue. So to get their attention, it's not that hard, to be quite honest, because you just turn around and there are vendors everywhere, literally. So it's not about getting their attention. It is more about solving a problem that they need solved. Because there's everyone that literally turn around and there are about 50 vendors who are probably speaking to our cybersecurity organization is about 400 solid across the globe. I'd say 3/4 of those individuals get the exact same emails all of us are getting about one vendor. And each of us are saying, did you speak to so-and-so because I just got an email? And so you don't need to try as hard to actually get in touch with them because they're there. What I would say, though, is I think all of the panelists have sort of tried to tease this out. Be clear about the problem you're solving. Understand your solution well enough. Because when you do get the leg in to have this conversation, trust me, no one knows what you're talking about. We're an insurance company, but we're also a solid tech shop. you think or dream up any tech, we have it. And Liberty Mutual is 100 years old. So we have everything from whenever that was to right now, anything that's brand new. So we have it all. So the real way of getting in is be clear about the problem you're solving and be able to talk about your problem, because none of us know what you're talking about. You come in, you own your solution, you tell us what it does, and tell us how it's going to help us solve whatever problem you've identified the rest of us have. And as Ricardo actually said, it's not hard to figure out what it is that everyone is trying to solve. It's right there. We're talking about it all the time. We've got blogs and special papers where we're talking about some of the issues we're dealing with. You just need to do a search. You'll see some of the risks that each of the industries are actually trying to address. They're no different. So if you put two and two together, it's very easy to figure out some of the areas where you want a unique problem solved. And if you have a unique solution and you know your solution, understand exactly how it comes together, understand the security controls that you've embedded, account for regulatory compliance, because any of the big companies, it doesn't matter what sector, there's a significant level of regulatory compliance, and you would have to address that. So be clear about what it is you're doing and solve a problem. Not every problem, a unique problem. I think that's the easiest thing I can say there.
Sounds so easy when you say it, right? It's like, but everyone wants to say, of course we can do that. You know, I can say that. You're sometimes so desperate to sell. So I hear that. I hear the pain on both sides there.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask each of you one quick question here. Now, there are big cybersecurity events happening in the US all the time, RSA, DEF CON, Black Hat, and everybody knows about those. But I'll actually ask Ricardo, Kathy, and Joe, and Helen, if you've got one to say, what is one specific industry-specific event or organisation that you could recommend for Australians looking to move more into your sector? And Kathy, what would you say?
Yeah, so there's these information sharing consortiums that we have here. HISAC is the one that's very healthcare specific. But the other, and that's that's by membership only. A lot of these organizations you have to become a member. The other ones that come to mind are like HIMSS, HIMSS, which is the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, and also CHIME, which stands for the College of Healthcare Information Management Executives. So those are just a few that come to mind that I know I'm always keeping a pulse on. Conferences, webinars, information, because they're not specific, they're not vendor affiliated. They're more organizations that are addressed towards the industry that provide information about cyber as well as other topics. But because they're industry specific, I think that's a good place to tap into. Those are good organizations to tap into.
Ricardo, what would you say?
I would echo the ISACs. Again, you have the barrier of entry from a membership perspective. Specifically for manufacturing, S4 is a really good cybersecurity conference, really around manufacturing industrial defense. And what I think is overlooked as well are your smaller membership that are local, like IC Squared and Osaka, and some of the older ones, the ISSA, that you get a lot of rich practitioners in those conferences. You're not selling to the CISO, going back to you're selling to the people that boots on the ground. I think it's a really great grassroots way to get to the practitioners and at least expose your technology to them.
Right. Kathy, Joe, what I should say, I was just looking at the wrong person then. Anything that you should go to for insurance? Where should we be?
So the ISACs are a good one, the financial services ISAC. So each sector has the information sharing organization. Helen's is the healthcare one. The one we're in is the financial services one. There you will have a mix of insurance and financial services, as in true financial services, banking and investment management, etc. Please don't say I said that. Yeah, but they're a little different. I would agree with the certifying organizations like the ISC Squareds, the Asakas of the world. Those are good places to go to get to the practitioners. If you're looking upscale even further, you can actually go to Gartner's Security and Risk Conference. There you will engage with some practitioners. You will stumble on lots of CISOs who are hanging out there. And then you will also hear about some of the security problems that that researcher is looking at. It's not exclusive to them, but they're another one of those that you could attend. You already talked about RSA. That's where a few folks go. Let's see. I would also, apart from the standard commercial sharing organizations, I'd also say keep an eye on the places like CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, because that gives you a different take on the types of things that government and industry sharing organizations are doing together. So you might also see some insightful areas there as you're doing research, a good place to go if you want to know more about the industry, as in cyber, how the industry engages with the government. Good place to go. For nothing else, good area to get reference points and some decent white papers sometimes. So I wouldn't forget those as well. There are a few others, but I think we've got some of the heavy hitting ones.
Fantastic. In the interest of time, I'm going to go and do a quick fire round with you all now. And this is going to be, I'm calling this myth busting. So if you agree with the myth, you just need to put your thumb up. If you disagree with the myth, you can just put your thumb down, right? So very first question. Now, these are just standard facts that Australian companies are always told about entering the US market. So there are no wrong answers, and I just love your perspectives. First one, boots on the ground. Companies need a US presence to sell to US security stakeholders. Agree or disagree? Ah, interesting. Okay. American, now there's a lot of accents here. American accents. Is there a bias? There is, actually, I would say there is a bias within the industry towards US accents when it comes to doing business. Okay. The risk appetite in the US. US CISOs are prepared to take a chance on a new business. It is solving a problem, a hard problem in a new way. Great. Size matters. Scale, size, and longevity matters when choosing whether or not to engage with a company. Oh, we got Ricardo's just sitting in the middle there. Accreditations. Cybersecurity accreditations are essential to win work in your particular industry.
No.
And final one. Is the US cybersecurity industry about who you know? Yes or no? Oh, I love this. There's no one is saying yes or no consistently to me. Now, I think there were going to be a few extra questions. Now, I've got one final question. I think then we have some Q&A. What is one final piece of advice you give to cybersecurity companies looking to do business in the US? And I'm going to give that one to you, Helen, because you've grown up in both places.
Yeah. I do think you can't eat the elephant all at one go. So my advice would be to, pick your target industries, pick your target company sizes, but also think about the geographic regions in the US where you want to home base out of. So I will say I do support boots on the ground. I do support having a presence, and you can't have a presence across the entire US. It's just the scale is too big. But thinking about, do you want to be in New York? Do you want to be in Silicon Valley? Do you want to be in Austin? Do you want to be in Columbus, Ohio? Like, where does it make sense for your particular product, your particular industry for you to sit, focus there, and then build out from there is my recommendation.
Okay, Ricardo, what would your one final piece of advice? We're going to listen to it.
All right. I would say understand our
Follow it.
industry before trying to sell everything under the sun. We have unique industry requirements with a varying degree of risk tolerance levels. Please do your homework. Please, please, please.
Kathy, for you, what would you say?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, is really understanding the healthcare market, understanding the needs, the challenges, the risks, the threats that face the organization, and then tailor your solutions and your messaging specifically to address those needs. And I agree with Helen, is you really do need to target, who your intended customer is. I think that having the accreditations is very important in a highly regulated environment. So I encourage even specific accreditations in each of the different areas, in addition to the generic ones, that's also a key piece. I know that's something we always look for, no matter what the solution is, to make sure that they're following standards. And when you have accreditations or certifications in healthcare, that does lend credibility and is an important variable that we take into account.
And Joe, you've got the final word here. What
right.
should we know? Yeah, the weight is on your shoulders. What should we know? Your final piece of advice.
All right. Let's see. I'll say I actually did say it earlier on. Transparency and trust go a long way. Insurance companies must feel confident in the cyber controls you offer them. Take the time to build relationships and partnerships by demonstrating that you've got a solid track record on what it is you're doing. Be clear in your communication about risks and the solutions you're offering, and ensure that you understand the regulatory environments so that you can demonstrate compliance with industry standards. If you do all of those things, I think you'll be right there in there.
Fantastic. Now, of course, we've talked too much. I am going to try and get through a couple of Q&As, and this one I'm going to ask Helen about. Is partnering with a US tech whale advantageous to get pull through?
I'm sorry, is partnering with the US tech what?
Whale, a mega, maybe a Cisco even.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be. If you look at a lot of the really successful startup organizations that have sort of made it through and gone big, including Wiz, which made the news recently, Thinks Canary, Duo, whatever, a lot of them actually started more grassroots and built up from there. So one of the things they did do was they made it easy for people of any organizational size to use their product, to try their product. They would offer like 5 licenses of a thing. And then what ended up happening was those companies grew their customer base through word of mouth that ultimately did make it up into those big cyber companies. You can target the big tech companies. The challenge is those big whale tech companies aren't the typical company in the rest of the United States. So, okay, so let's say Cisco buys your product and uses it. Great. But does that mean anybody else cares? Is the Cisco experience relevant to the healthcare experience, to the finance, to the manufacturing experience? Maybe some of it, maybe not, right? So going after the big companies, I'm not sure. It's a strategy. I think it will depend on the piece of security you're in too. If your security offering is in a segment of the market with many other players, I don't think it's going to be that helpful to you. But if you've got a particularly unique and cutting edge solution, then perhaps that's a place to go. How's that for a non-answer? It depends. Welcome to security. It depends.
That's okay. It's just perspective, and it's still equally, it's perspective, and this is how things are. The life is not, world is not nice and clear, black and white. Otherwise, I suspect all of us would not have jobs right now, to be honest. There are a few more questions in the chat, and I think there's one about presenting products. So we'll try to I'll ask the Global Victoria team to see if they can follow you up specifically with those questions. My learnings now is if I'm going to do a quick recap, is the words I'm coming out is, yes, certainly know your market. It does seem that even though it's hard to get to a CISO specifically, you can get to the practitioners who are solving the problem that you are solving. Be very specific about that problem. Don't try and eat the elephant with it. Be very specific. The US market is certainly deep enough in its verticals, and within its vertical, there is likely to be a customer who's going to be right for that product. So don't try and sell it to everyone. Mm-hmm. So while we all tend to see from this, this side of the planet, we see the US as a huge opportunity. It's certainly not monolithic, and it's not as an homogenous market as we might initially assume, and hopefully you've seen today from each of the very different answers and viewpoints that have come across from these panelists. I'd love to thank you all for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. Could have gone for another 2 hours. I think there's still probably about another 5 or 20 questions I could have asked you all, but now I'll hand this over back to Troy. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirstin, and good morning, all. I'm not going to assume that we've met or you've previously joined one of our sessions. So for those of you I'm yet to meet, my name is Troy Twin. I'm a trade manager of the technology, health and sport team at Global Victoria. On behalf of Global Victoria, I'd like to thank our Victorian cybersecurity community for joining us today. I would also like to thank Kirstin and Something Real Ventures for moderating today's session, and a real special thanks to all our US speakers who have given up time in their evening to share their insights and expertise. As previously mentioned, this was the third in a 4-part webinar series. You can find a recording of the first 2 sessions, an introduction to the US market and US defense in depth on the webinar registration page. And I'll place a recording of today's session on this page and inform you when it's available. I encourage you to register for the 4th and final session to be held in 2 weeks from today. In this session, we'll look at the geographies of cybersecurity in the US, and representatives from the economic development agencies of Virginia, New York City, and San Francisco will outline the benefits of setting up in their region and the key players and programs to be aware of. Dan should have by now placed the link to the webinar registration page in the chat so you can register for that session. I really look forward to connecting all with you soon regarding your broader export plans in more detail, and Dan is available in our Washington, DC office should you be ready to take that first step or increase your engagement in the US. To close, I hope today's session gave you some insight into what corporate cyber decision makers in the US are looking for across varying industries. I hope it also goes some way to providing a foundation as to how you might make your approach in the US, particularly as many of you are about to head to the US for upcoming engagements in the US spring summer around cybersecurity. So hope you enjoyed the session and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.